Have you ever replayed an awkward moment over and over in your mind? Or felt your stomach drop, remembering something you said at a party 3 years ago? Maybe you've convinced yourself that if people really knew you, they'd reject you. Well, I've got some good news and some bad news. The good news is that ancient philosophers didn't believe shame was proof that something was wrong with you, and they found a way to not carry it around as baggage. The bad news? They believed shame could either sharpen your character or quietly destroy your life. And the difference depended on one question. By the end of this video, I'll give you a 7-day experiment to answer it for yourself. Here's what the ancients understood that we've forgotten. There are actually two completely different kinds of shame. The first kind comes from violating your own deeply held values. When you act against who you truly want to be, that's a sign you need to change something. This type is useful. It's a compass. The second kind is just social fear. One awkward sentence, one rejection, one visible failure. It's not about your character at all. It's about what other people might think. And the problem is this. These two types of shame feel exactly the same. Same hot face, same sinking stomach, same urge to hide. But one leads to growth, the other to paralysis. That's why the Stoics made a radical distinction between embarrassment and actual wrongdoing. Looking awkward? Not important. Being disliked? Not important. Failing publicly? Not important. Making a bad YouTube video? Still not important. The only thing that truly mattered was character. Did you act dishonestly, betray your values, behave with cowardice, cruelty, or deception? If not, then much of your shame is simply fear of judgment wearing a philosophical disguise. Worse, it keeps you trapped in self-consciousness. Instead of asking, what's the right thing to do? You begin asking, how do I avoid embarrassment? And once avoiding embarrassment becomes your highest priority, your life starts shrinking. You stop speaking honestly, stop taking risks, stop expressing yourself naturally, and you begin managing perception instead of pursuing truth. The Stoic solution was simple but difficult. Examine the mistake honestly. Correct what needs correcting. Then stop feeding the humiliation. Because endless self-condemnation serves no purpose. Now, the Stoics weren't the only philosophers thinking about shame. Aristotle had a more balanced view. He believes shame could actually be useful, especially for young people still developing character. In his view, shame can function like an internal warning system by helping people recognize behavior that moves them away from virtue. Ancient philosophy focused far more on actions than identity. Philosophers like Aristotle viewed human beings as unfinished. Character was something developed through practice, reflection, and repetition. You are not permanently defined by your worst moment. You are defined by what you repeatedly choose to become. Ancient philosophy rarely treated guilt as something meant to be permanent. The purpose of shame was correction, not lifelong self-punishment. And then there were the cynics, especially Diogenes. He took things even further. Diogenes believed society trains people to feel ashamed of the wrong things. People feel ashamed of poverty, being unconventional, being different. But they feel proud of status, wealth, and social approval. Sound familiar? And then there's Socrates. Now, Socrates saw embarrassment differently than most people do. He regularly questioned people in public, exposing contradictions in their thinking. Many found it humiliating. But Socrates believed temporary embarrassment was valuable if it led to truth. In other words, it's better to feel uncomfortable and grow then protect your pride and remain trapped in illusion. That completely reframes shame. Instead of seeing shame as proof that you are broken, it becomes an invitation to examine yourself honestly. Ancient philosophers repeatedly warned against turning mistakes into identity. Once shame becomes identity, people stop improving. They stop speaking honestly, stop trying, stop risking failure. They become passive observers in their own lives, always cautious, self-monitoring, trying to avoid humiliation. And ironically, that fear often creates the exact life they're trying to avoid, a small, restricted, anxious life. But happily, philosophy offered another path. A person should care deeply about character and less about appearance. Care about truth more than image. Care about integrity more than approval. Care about whether your actions are good, not whether everyone claps for them. But what do we do with all of this? First, remember that there are two kinds of shame. Shame that is the result of violating your own values, and shame that comes from worrying about other people's opinions. If it's a violation of your values, Socrates had a three-step solution. Examine the mistake honestly, correct what needs correcting, then stop feeding the humiliation. If you've done everything you can do to correct it, just learn from it and move on. But if your shame comes from the fear of others' judgment, that's just social fear. In that case, let it go. You don't need to carry it around anymore. The goal was never to become shameless. The goal was to stop surrendering your self-worth to the opinions of others. If you can separate your character from public judgment, shame loses much of its power. Well, let's do the experiment I promised you. After all, philosophy is just a bunch of words if you don't put it into practical use. Choose one thing you feel some shame about. Doesn't have to be a big thing. In fact, choose a small one to start. Just something to use for this experiment. Go ahead and pause the video if you need some time. And actually, feel free to take your time because I'm going to take about a 10-second coffee break. Okay, let's get started. Now that you have an embarrassment or shame firmly in your mind, and I'm sorry about that, let's ask a few questions. First, did I knowingly hurt someone, or did I just make an honest mistake? Second, would I still feel ashamed if no one ever knew what happened? And third, if someone I admired was in this exact situation, would I shame them or would I help them? Now here's what just happened. You separated the two types of shame. If your shame came from a violation of your own values, that's a signal to make a change. Let it guide you toward becoming the person you want to be. So here's the experiment. For the next week, every time you experience shame, whether new or old, ask these three questions. Write down the answers. At the end of the week, look back and count how much of your shame was about values and how much was about other people's opinions. The answers might surprise you. It might even set you free. Consider reviewing this video halfway through the week to see if you've gained any new insights. Hopefully this will bring you some clarity and you can begin to move forward. Now, philosophy thrives in conversation and argument. Please add your comment below. And maybe, if you're feeling really brave, share your experience with shame. If you want to go deeper, check the descriptions and pinned comment for resources. And if you found this helpful, I would really appreciate it if you give a gentle tap to the like and subscribe buttons. And remember, in all things, at all times, be a philosopher.